Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a comedy drama from 2013 titled, About Time. The Lake family have found a haven of tranquility in their coastline residence. Mary and James with their kids Tim and Kit Kat, celebrate the new year with their loved ones every year by hosting a party. During this year's party, Tim feels uncomfortable and dragged around by his friend Jay, as he navigates through the crowd. As the countdown to the new year begins, Tim dances with a girl named Polly. She leans in for a kiss, but Tim surprises her by shaking her hand instead, leaving her disappointed. The next day, Tim wakes up feeling overwhelmed with embarrassment and suffering from a terrible hangover. He is summoned to his father's study, where James reveals a secret he has never shared with anyone before. According to James, the men in their family, including Tim, possess the ability to travel back in time, but only within their own lifetimes. They cannot go to a past they haven't experienced or a place they've never been to. To activate this power, they must enter a dark space, like a large cupboard, and concentrate on the desired place and time. Miraculously, they will find themselves transported there. Naturally, Tim initially dismisses this revelation as a joke. He shakes his head, thinking his father is teasing him. In order to prove that it's not true, Tim steps inside the closet and thinks about the New Year's Eve party from the previous night. After a few seconds, he emerges from the closet, astounded to find himself wearing the same clothes as the day before. He hears music and conversations coming from downstairs. Jay immediately pulls him away, narrowly avoiding a table that Tim had previously knocked over. When the countdown arrives, Tim kisses Polly, who reacts with delight. Afterwards, Tim returns to the closet and travels back to the present. Convinced that time travel is indeed real, he listens to his father's own experiences with this ability, which explain how James seemed to have so much time for his family. James advises Tim not to use this power for personal gain or influence, so Tim decides that he will use it to find love. During that summer, Kit Kat invites her boyfriend's cousin, Charlotte, to stay at the beach house for 2 months. One afternoon, while the family is sunbathing with Charlotte, Tim sees an opportunity to impress her. He offers to apply sunscreen on her back but accidentally spills it on her instead, causing him humiliation. Feeling embarrassed, Tim decides to travel back in time and handle the situation more smoothly. Throughout the summer, he tries to impress Charlotte multiple times but fails each time, eventually realizing that it's too late. Finally, on Charlotte's last day at the house, Tim hopes to confess his feelings to her. However, Kit Kat has already warned Charlotte about Tim's intentions, and she shuts him down before he has a chance to speak. Tim wonders if things would have been different if he had approached her earlier, before her last night at the house. This thought gives Tim an idea. He travels back in time to the middle of the summer and confesses his feelings to Charlotte. This time, Charlotte tells him to ask her again on her last night at the house, confirming that their outcome would have remained the same regardless of his actions. Tim finally gives up on pursuing her. The day after Charlotte leaves, Tim decides to leave the house and move to London, where he stays with James' friend, Harry. Although Tim is excited about this new chapter in his life, he soon realizes that Harry, a short-tempered playwright, is not the ideal companion. For the first 6 months in London, Tim struggles to find romance and mainly interacts with other men due to his career as a lawyer. However, his luck changes one night when Jay takes him to Don Le Noir, a restaurant where guests dine in complete darkness. Tim and a woman named Mary are seated next to each other and have a great time getting to know each other in the darkness. After dinner, when they finally meet face to face, Tim is captivated by Mary, and it's clear that there is a spark between them. Mary gives Tim her phone number before they part ways. Tim happily walks back home but is greeted by an annoyed Harry, whose play's opening night was ruined by an actor forgetting their lines. Determined to fix things, Tim travels back in time to the theater just before opening night and helps the lead actor, Tom, practice his lines. However, this time, another actor forgets their lines. Tim goes back in time once again to assist them. Despite the challenges, the play becomes a success. However, when Tim checks his phone, he realizes that Mary's number is no longer saved. His time travels have erased the beautiful evening he shared with her, leaving him distraught. The next day, Tim joins an excited Harry for breakfast, who shows him a newspaper featuring an advertisement for a Kate Moss exhibition in the city. Knowing that Mary is a fan of Kate Moss, Tim spends the week at the exhibit, hoping to run into her. After an entire week, Mary finally enters the scene, and Tim nervously approaches her. However, their interaction doesn't go smoothly as he discovers that Mary now has a boyfriend named Rupert. Tim learns that Mary met Rupert at Joanna's party and decides to intervene. He gathers information about the party and travels back in time to prevent it from happening. Tim arrives at Joanna's apartment and convinces Mary to leave the party with him before Rupert arrives. Although Mary is initially hesitant, she feels a strong pull towards Tim and agrees to leave. As they make their exit, they unknowingly pass by Rupert, who misses the chance to meet his supposed future girlfriend. Tim and Mary proceed to have a delightful dinner where they deepen their connection. Tim accompanies Mary to her apartment, and the chemistry between them intensifies. They move to the bedroom, but their first sexual encounter becomes awkward due to Tim tripping over Mary's shoes and struggling with her bra. Determined to improve, Tim goes back in time and successfully bypasses the shoe mishap, ensuring a smoother experience. After several attempts, Tim and Mary share a perfect night of passion. Their relationship continues to blossom over the following months, leading them to eventually move in together. One day, while Tim is at the theater with his co-worker Rory, he unexpectedly encounters Charlotte. Unfortunately, their conversation becomes awkward. Tim tries again for a second chance, but it doesn't go well. On his third attempt, Tim decides not to approach Charlotte. Surprisingly, she spots him and initiates the conversation instead. Charlotte expresses her regrets about rejecting him in the past. Later, she invites him to dinner and tempts him to go inside her apartment, but Tim declines. Declining his first love helps Tim realize the depth of his love for Mary. He rushes back home and wakes her up to propose, but it doesn't turn out as romantic as he expected. He tries again, and on the second attempt, Mary says yes to his proposal. That summer, Tim introduces Mary to his parents, and they all get along well. Tim enjoys spending quality time with his father, and to his surprise, Kit Kat returns home after a difficult time in London. The Lake family rejoices when Tim and Mary announce their wedding and Mary's pregnancy. Despite stormy weather during the ceremony and reception, their wedding is filled with romance and laughter. The tent is damaged by the wind, forcing everyone to seek shelter inside the house. Tim decides to go back in time and change his choice of best man after various speech mishaps by Rory, Harry, and Jay. Eventually, he selects his father for the role. Months later, Mary gives birth to their daughter, Posey. Tim is captivated by the joys and challenges of raising a child. They move into a new house, and Posey's first birthday is celebrated with all their loved ones, including Harry and Rory. However, Kit Kat arrives late, and instead of her, Tim is surprised by the arrival of her troublesome boyfriend, Jimmy. Earlier that day, Kit Kat and Jimmy had a heated argument, leading Kit Kat to drive to Tim's house on her own. Unfortunately, she had been drinking and ended up crashing her car. Concerned for her safety, Tim goes back in time and retrieves Kit Kat from her home instead. However, this doesn't resolve the underlying issue of Kit Kat's drinking problem caused by her unhappy relationship with Jimmy. Tim tries to talk to Kit Kat, hoping to help her, but his efforts prove unsuccessful. In a last-ditch attempt, he takes Kit Kat back in time to the New Year's Eve party where she first met Jimmy. Instead of flirting with him, Kit Kat vents her built-up anger and punches him, even though he doesn't recognize her in this altered timeline. Returning to the present, Kit Kat realizes her true feelings for Jay. They start dating, and their relationship turns out to be much healthier than her previous one with Jimmy. Tim, relieved to have saved his sister's life and happiness, returns home but discovers that his daughter, Posey, has been replaced by a son. Overwhelmed with sorrow, Tim realizes that any changes made before Posey's birth result in a different child being conceived. To preserve Posey's existence, he cannot alter anything that occurred prior to her birth. Unable to accept losing the daughter he knows, Tim travels back in time again to undo the changes he made in Kit Kat's life, allowing her car accident to happen. Tim and Mary stand by Kit Kat's side in the hospital as she recovers from the accident. Their support inspires Kit Kat to make positive changes in her life. Recalling the alternate timeline in which she finds happiness with Jay, Tim suggests that Kit Kat starts seeing him. After returning from the hospital, Tim cherishes every moment with his daughter and is inspired to have another child. Despite Mary's initial reluctance, they conceive their son 2 years later. One evening, as Tim assists Mary in preparing to meet her company's best-selling author, they accidentally leave Posey downstairs, where she ends up destroying the author's manuscript from Mary's office. Tim considers using time travel to fix the situation, but their plans are interrupted by a phone call from Tim's mother, who shares the devastating news that James has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Tim, Mary, and Kit Kat visit the beach house where they spend time with James. It becomes clear that time travel cannot cure his cancer without jeopardizing Tim and Kit Kat's existence. They come to accept that not everything in life can be fixed with time travel. James imparts a valuable lesson to Tim, emphasizing the importance of experiencing life's everyday tensions and worries. He advises Tim to live each day fully and to revisit moments in his life, savoring the sweetness that the world has to offer. Taking his father's advice to heart, Tim finds happiness in both ordinary and extraordinary moments. However, there are certain days that Tim doesn't wish to relive, such as the day his father passed away. Unable to say goodbye, Tim makes the decision to travel back in time to spend time with his father while he is still healthy and alive. After the passing of James, Tim finds solace in the fact that he can still visit his father through time travel whenever he misses him. However, one day, Mary expresses her desire to have a third child. Tim is torn, knowing that welcoming another child would mean sacrificing his ability to visit his father in the past. After careful consideration, he decides to let go of the past and embrace the future, agreeing to have another child. Months go by, and Mary's pregnancy reaches its final stages. Tim realizes that this is his last opportunity to visit his father in the past. He travels back in time and shares a heartfelt game of table tennis with his father, sensing the weight of their final moments together. James understands and accepts that this is their farewell, affirming his support for Tim's decision. As a special treat, they venture back in time together to when Tim was a young boy. Both rejuvenated and full of energy, James and Tim run and play on the beach, cherishing their time together for the last time. Tim bids his final goodbyes to his father and returns to the present, where his third child is about to be born. Years pass, and Tim embraces the normalcy of life, experiencing both joyous laughter and heartfelt tears with his family. His family is complete with Mary and their children, and Kit Kat also becomes a mother, welcoming her child with Jay. One morning, Tim allows Mary to sleep in while he prepares breakfast for their children, relishing in the joy of their presence. Deciding to stop going back in time, Tim vows to live each day as if it's a precious moment he's experiencing for the second time. He shifts his focus towards appreciating life in all its forms, finding beauty in both significant milestones and the smallest details. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more videos like this.